What's up? What's up? What's up? Blue Hair Blue Bears games. This week we're again continuing our Blues Budget Battle Bruce series. Updating some of the older videos, making them new with all the newer things that I've learned on how to make videos. You know, lighting for one. That's a big one since I didn't have any lighting in the original video for this one. A stand, stuff like that. So this is actually one of my simpler, more basic decks. This is for people who are just trying to learn how to play the game, want to teach somebody how to play the game. It's beast mode. Simply put, it's basically beast tribal. So the strategy on this deck is pretty simple. Be bigger than your opponent. And what I mean by that is your creatures have a lower mana value for a higher power toughness, because that's what green does, and it's beasts, and usually beasts are a little higher than others. So let me show you what I got. So this one's a little different than the original version that I did, in that I added Elfhame Druid to add a little bit of ramp to it, because this kicker this ability to add more mana for a kick spell. I was looking at the deck, and I was looking at the way I built it over the, as it evolved, and a lot of the things in here have kicker. So why not make it faster? So I added Elfhame Druid because it adds a green, but if you cast a kick spell, you can add 2 green. So it's not bad when you see that the next 4 creatures all have kicker. Gnarlid Colony, 2 to cast, 2/2. That is basic now in Magic. Back in the day, that was actually pretty good. That's why there's things called, like Grizzly Bears, that's why things are called bears, because 2 to cast, 2/2s back in the day were actually really good. Now they're just common. But it has a kicker, and the kicker is for 3. If it was kicked, you can come into play with 2 +1/+1 counters, making it a 4/4. And then the other ability is each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter has trample. So I've been trying to find ways to give everything trample in this deck. That's one of them, because a lot of things in here come into play with +1/+1 counters. So that's first. Then we got Gnarlid Pack. If you haven't noticed, they're all pretty gnarly. They're all Gnarlids. They're both beasts. This one's also 2 to cast, 2/2. It has multi-kicker instead of just kicker. So it's 2 for a 2/2, and then for each 2 additional that you kick into it, it comes in play with an additional +1/+1 counter. So for 4, it's a 3/3. For 6, it's a 4/4, and so on and so on and so on. Comes into play with +1/+1 counters, so Gnarlid Colony will give it trample as well. Battering Krasis, more +1/+1 counter fun. 3 to cast for a 2/1 trample, has an ability called Evolve. What that states is whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it had a greater power or toughness than this creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So for instance, you have a Battering Krasis in play, and you play a Gnarlid Pack for the 2, no multi-kicker. If it had no counters on it, it's a 2/1, but this thing is a 2/2. That greater toughness puts a counter on it, making it a 3/2. If you kick one of these, so for instance, if you kick Gnarlid Pack and it has the counter on it, it still has a greater toughness. If this has a counter and this has a counter, it has a greater toughness, it will actually evolve this. And if you need me to explain that any further, go ahead and contact me, and I will. It seems pretty basic, but I've been playing this game for a long time, and I've actually played this kind of a deck for a while, with Evolve anyway. So if you need more information on that, just let me know. I will go over it further. Got 4 of them in there. Advocate of the Beast is always in one of my Beast decks. 3 to cast, 2/3. I'm actually running out of these. If anybody's got any wants to send them to me, that would be great. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on target beast you control. So you see a small theme here. Everything comes in here either kicked with +1/+1 counters, adds counters, and then they gain trample because of it. Synergy, guys. It's all about the synergy. That's all it is. Garruk's Harbinger. So 3 to cast for a 4/3. Hexproof from black means that your opponents can't see it. They can't damage it. I'm sorry. They can't target it at all with anything black. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, look at that many cards from the top of your library, and you reveal a creature card or a Garruk planeswalker from among them, and put it into your hand, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So it's a 3 to cast, 4/3, much bigger than most 3 to cast in the game. Has 2 abilities. One of them is to go and grab things off the top of your library. So when it says when it deals damage, look at that many cards, it means that how much damage it did. So it's 4 power. It can be bigger, but at the base, it's 4 power, so look at the top 4 cards of your library. For 3 mana, I'm not sure how this isn't a $20 card, but lucky for you, it's a budget card that I can put in a budget deck that has the ability of a non-budget card. Baloth Gorger, again, more kicker. 4 to cast, 4/4, kicker of 4. If you kick it, it comes into play with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. So now you're starting to see why I chose to put Elfhame Druid in here. A lot of spells with kicker, and it helps make the deck faster. Got 4 of them in there. Obstinate Baloth, so it's a 4 to cast, 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 4 life, so you can keep yourself alive longer. And then if a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard this card, you can put it on the battlefield instead of your graveyard. People don't play a lot of discard anymore, but some do, so it's still a little relevant. I got Garruk's Pack Leader, 5 to cast, 4/4. Whenever another creature with power 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. And most of the things in here are going to enter the battlefield with a power greater than 3, so I got 2 of them. Thragtusk. When Thragtusk enters the battlefield again, just like the Obstinate Baloth, you gain life. This one gives you 5. However, when it leaves the battlefield, create a 3/3 green beast creature token. So when it comes into play, it gives you life. When it leaves play, it gives you a beast in its wake. Adventurous Impulse. I talked about this a couple weeks ago in one of the other green decks. Card draw is a weakness for green. I've tried to minimize that as much as possible. Adventurous Impulse. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You can reveal a creature or land from among them, put in your hand, and put the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. Not draw, but put into hand. There is no term for that, unfortunately. Got 4 of them. Prey Upon, because we are beasts. Again, the strategy here is be bigger than your opponent. Prey Upon makes, for 1, target creature you control fights target creature you don't control, and fighting just means that each creature deals damage to the other equal to its power, and your guys should be bigger by far, so you should be able to kill some of your opponent's creatures. I got 2 of them in there just because they're not as good as Ram Through. Ram Through is kind of similar. So I believe this is a bite card is what they call it. So fight cards and bite cards are similar but have a very special difference. So 2 to cast. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. That's a bite card. The rest of it's not a bite card, but this is why I use this one. Ram Through is actually pretty unique. In this deck, it actually works very well. So if the creature you control has trample, the excess damage it deals to that creature goes to the creature's controller instead. So you have a 5/5, you have a fight a 1/1, and the creature you would control has trample. The excess 4 damage gets dealt to your opponent. It's quasi-direct damage for green. It's a little, weird, but it works really well in this deck. Got 4 of them. And remember how Garruk's not pack leader, what the hell is this thing called? In my 3s. Garruk's Harbinger has the ability to search in your library, not search, but dig for a Garruk. Well, we got a Garruk in here. Why wouldn't we? So this is Garruk Unleashed. He's 4 to cast. He's a Planeswalker that comes into play with 4 loyalty counters. His uptick is up to 1 target creature gets +3/+3 and trample until end of turn. So there's that trample that I'm trying to get as much as I can in this deck. It has a down tick, so you can either uptick it for 1 or down tick it for 2. So take 2 loyalty counters off of it, and you can create a 3/3 green beast creature token. And then if an opponent controls more creatures than you do, you can put a loyalty counter on Garruk. So it would only end up costing 1 to do that. And then it's ultimate. It's -7 loyalty counters. You get an emblem with at the beginning of your end step. You may search your library for a creature, put it on into the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. So free creatures all around. Go get your biggest baddies, put them out and play and win. So this deck has a lot of synergy. I talk about that all the time, that with deck building, putting Jank together is fun, but synergy with Jank is always better. Colossal Majesty. So card draw, again, weakness, but in green, it actually has card draw, and it uses your creatures to do so. It doesn't change with Colossal Majesty. 3 to cast enchantment at the beginning of your upkeep. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. So you should be able to make use of this. And I've got 2 of them in there, so you should be able to use, they both will trigger. So, and then the rest is just farce. So it's a basic concept. It's good for beginners to learn how to do that. It helps show people how to think about deck building, how to use synergies. Great to teach and teach with. It has a power level that's pretty even keeled with the rest of the decks. It actually can hold up to a lot. There are some that it can't, like Infect. It just, but Infect is a different story altogether. But it's a great tool. This deck is a tool to use to teach people how to play this game. It's very good. It teaches you many different aspects of the game, but not all, not too rushed. So keep that in mind. It's a great deck for that. But you can upgrade it if you want to go beyond that, all right? So you've got some beasts out there that are a little bit better than the ones I have in here, and some of them are actually quite cheap. So the 1-drop here, so there is no 1-drop in this deck, and, that's a shame because there aren't any. I mean, Arboreal Grazer was a 1-drop beast, but it has no power, so it's kind of eh. So you can go with a Swarm Shambler. It's a beast that's 1 to cast, but it doesn't really, I don't know, it's not as good as the rest of the cards in here. Or you can do a Sky Shroud Ridgeback. Now, that was from way back in the day. It has Fading, and I don't have any, or I would have put it in here as the 1-drop. But it fits the theme of the deck very well. I just didn't have any. If you have any, throw them in here. Garruk's Companion and Colonian Tusker, both 2-drops that have they have no abilities. They're vanilla creatures, but they have 2 to cast 3/3 or a 2 to cast 3/2 with trample. They're actually pretty good. I've run out of them because I built this deck 9 times and I've used them all, so I had to adjust and change. We got 3 drops. Garruk's Harbingers. Add more of them. That's this guy right here. Add more of them. He's probably one of the best beasts they've ever printed, so add more of them. Krosan Warchief actually reduces the cost of your beasts and can regenerate them. I don't have any. They were printed a long time ago, and I just don't have any. Or Leatherback Baloths are an addition that you can add as well. For 4 drops, so this is the most expensive one, I think, as far as beasts go. Questing Beast. Probably. So while the Harbinger is great, Questing Beast is better, but it's also like $20. So it's give or take there. And then Ulvenwald Oddities are a good addition as well, and I'm going to have everything up there for you to see as far as those go. Those are some things that you can add in or swap out depending on your playstyle. I like the +1/+1 counter theme. It has a lot of synergy. It helps create some resiliency. It's just good fun. Again, it also is a great tool to teach how to do things like adding +1/+1 counters and kicking things and timing rules and all that stuff. So how to use mana dorks. So you can do it either way. Some spells that you can do. Again, Harmonize in green is one of the best card draw cards in the game, let alone just in green. It's 4 to cast, draw 3 cards. I mean, it's actually absolutely nuts, and it hasn't been printed enough to warrant being able to put it in a lot of budget decks yet because it's only got a couple printings. But when they start actually doing more and more, I'll start adding them. You can go a route that I like, which is Overwhelming Stampede or Overruns, which is to say combat and making all your creatures bigger, and then they all have trample in this version, or at least they can gain trample. But if they don't, Overwhelming Stampede and Overrun can fix that. I mentioned bite cards earlier, so you can take out the Prey Upon and put in Rabid Bite, so that way you're not trading. Bite cards make it so that your creatures deal damage only to the opponent's creature, and fight cards they deal into each other. So bite cards are a little bit better, but their mana values are a little higher. And then as far as lands go, so I don't like to suggest reserve list cards and cards that are $70 for these budget decks. The only thing I could think of to add to this deck, or the only two things I could think of, would actually be a couple $1,000 card or a couple $100 card, and I just don't like doing that. But if you wanted to go that route, you could do a Gaea's Cradle or Yavimaya Hollow. Yavimaya Hollow regenerates creatures, and regenerating big baddies is always fun. So that was the original suggestion, and I don't like to suggest Gaea's Cradle, but it can be done. I'm only going to show you Yavimaya Hollow, but you can do Gaea's Cradle too. So, and that's all I got for you on this fun little $20 beast deck. If you would, you're looking to show somebody how to play the game, this is a perfect deck. It's $20. If you wanted to purchase it, plus another deck for a dual deck type situation where you can have 2 decks that are similar, I have equivalent decks to this that you can do that, you can teach each other how to play or show somebody else how to play. Other than that, please do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it out. Share it out. Share it out. Because this is the kind of deck that people can use as a tool, and it's a great tool to use to show people how to play. And I really would appreciate if people would show that out to others. I don't have any videos that show people how to play specifically, and that's because you never know what somebody's abilities are. And without having a back and forth interaction, I can't do that. But I can at least provide the decks that can do that. So, anyway, thank you for watching. I will see you all next week.